What is going on, everyone? My name is Kurt, and welcome to this show. On this week's episode, I really want to talk about a concept that I got into with my colleague and buddy, Lucas Winning. We were talking earlier this week about confidence, and in that podcast, we did a bit of a deep dive about our perspectives, and I kind of went on a little bit of a ramble, and I want to speak about a couple other things I know about the topic. I have studied a bit of Nathaniel Branden's self-esteem work. If you've never been there and looked at it, it's pretty rad. It's very technical, very psychology based, but pretty interesting. And I've also dove into Russ Harris's work, and he's a doctor who actually focuses on acceptance and commitment therapy and teaches individuals how to sort of build confidence and basically face their fears with some courage and really understand the aspects of emotional agility and what it takes. So stay tuned, and we're going to dive right into these topics. Confidence and self-esteem. What the heck are these topics? We hear them in society all the time, but there isn't a huge underlying definition that people give them. And in my experience, a lot of what people have with confidence or self-esteem is inherently given and unconsciously developed. But you can actually develop both of these. So what I'm going to do is kind of break down what I've studied about both of them, what they mean, and then give you a few sort of pro tips on my experience working through them and getting them to a place. Now, this isn't to say that I have perfect self-esteem or that I'm the most confident individual in the world. By a long shot, that's not the case. I have had to consciously work on a lot of these areas of my life, and just like anything with confidence, as well as self-esteem, practice and understanding will really help you get there. So I'm not going to be able to phrase the post exactly as I wrote it out in the framework. So if you want more details, I highly recommend you check out the newsletter and read what I wrote. But in general, let's define the two terms. So confidence. Confidence is really kind of your level of certainty about a specific skill or task or ability. So if you're really confident as an individual, generally society is referring to your ability to carry yourself in a social setting. That guy's confident, that gal's confident. You meet them, they portray themselves as very certain about themselves, about what they're going to say, about their intelligence, about their ability to sort of handle whatever it is they're dealing with in that sort of social setting. You also see them on videos when people are doing podcasts over air or they're doing their own YouTube video. You're going to see them say things in a more confident manner. Again, it's directed at a skill though. So you can take someone who's very confident on television or in front of a camera, and then you can put them on a live stage and they can be very, very kind of shaky, less confident. And the same goes for being in a social setting. They can be very socially confident, but then if you ask them to do an engineering project, they could completely bomb and be terrible and suck at it. Self-esteem, on the other hand, is related a lot more internally, and it's built on a few concepts. Now, there's a whole lot of stuff out there that debates self-esteem, and I don't really know whether or not what I'm going to speak about is exactly the gold standard, but what I do know is the guy that I studied, Nathaniel Branden, is kind of the pioneer of self-esteem in general. If you look at Amazon, you go through and Google a lot of work on self-esteem, you're going to see his name come up a ton. And this dude was a psychologist, a clinical psychologist. He worked with a lot of patients over many years, and he wrote literally like 17 books on the topic of self-esteem. And I love his writing because it's really probably some of the most beautiful writing I've read in terms of like psychology. He's very good at his vocabulary, at using his words, and his words are very descriptive and effective at delivering the message. So he's very specific and directed in how he explains the topic. But essentially what it comes down to is self-esteem is confidence within some capacities within yourself. And he breaks it down into pillars. He's got 6 of them. There is self-responsibility. So how responsible are you for your life, for the actions, for your situation, for what's going on in your world? How assertive are you in social situations, in speaking up for yourself? How conscious are you living? Are you living where you're burying your head in the sand and just avoiding what's going on in your world? Or are you actually facing the realities of your life and your challenges? And the more you live in a conscious way, being aware of those things, facing reality, the more that feeds into the pillars, these 6 pillars of your self-esteem. The other ones are like, there's self-responsibility, integrity, personal integrity, keeping your own word. It's enough to keep your word with other people, but if you're not keeping your word with yourself, then that really bleeds in and really becomes kind of insidious in terms of how much self-esteem you have for yourself. And so think about confidence as your sort of certainty towards a specific skill, which could be how confident you are when you're on a date with someone, or when you're in front of a camera, or when you're talking about a certain topic, where self-esteem is these 6 pillars: integrity, self-responsibility, living consciously, living purposefully, being assertive, and I can't remember the 6th one, but it's the combination of these things and all of them basically coming together in culmination to sort of build how you view the world, your ability to deal with life's challenges, and how you feel about yourself overall. It's great to have great self-esteem. It's also great to have confidence. In congruence together, they can work wonders in terms of taking you where you want to go. So again, defining the 2 terms, we've kind of broken them down. In terms of how to build them, generally speaking, you want to understand them. So we just kind of laid out the groundwork of some high-level definitions around them. If you really want to get into more of the weeds of this, go read about them. Russ Harris is great about self-confidence. And there's a lot of other authors out there that I'm not even mentioning that are probably very, very qualified at the topic. And Nathaniel Branden, he's going to tell you a lot about self-esteem. You can read a lot about them. You can learn what they've studied and learned about how to build both those skills. But just understanding the basic theories gives you some more framework and syntax of understanding within yourself. The second thing you can do is assess yourself. How confident are you in scenarios? Take yourself on a self-survey. On a scale of 1 to 10, when you're in a social setting, do you do this very well? 1 to 10. And you can sort of rate yourself. I tell everybody in my company and anyone I'm mentoring or coaching on a scale of, on a situation where you're trying to move yourself to a destination, you have to know where you are first and then know where your outcome is, which leads right into that 3rd point. What is your outcome? Define it. Are you trying to be as confident as Bruce Lee at Kung Fu and martial arts? You're going to have to probably study some pretty badass masters and get really, really in the weeds on all the techniques of his sort of style of martial arts. Is your outcome a little bit more light? You're just looking for a little bit of basic experience in self-defense classes. Well, you don't need to go as deep. And so knowing where you are, understanding the theory, knowing where you are, knowing where you want to go are all great things. The final point I want to touch on is a lot of what Russ Harris speaks about in his book, The Confidence Gap. So I kind of define confidence in my mind as my level of certainty, as my ability to sort of handle the situation, whether it's something I have to learn that I don't know anything about, or something I already have a lot of experience in, and I'm just sort of channeling and sort of accomplishing that task. Whatever it is, that's sort of confidence for me. And what Russ Harris says in The Confidence Gap is that you don't always want to judge confidence based on your levels of emotional certainty or security in life. So a lot of times, and he uses the example of writing books because he was a medical doctor who really discovered acceptance and commitment therapy as a great clinical practice to apply to treating patients who were coming to him with all these medical issues that were actually being caused by emotional and mental disorders that they had, diseases that they had. And so acceptance and commitment therapy is really a mindful-based therapy where you essentially step away from your mind a bit, learn some techniques to sort of get out of the stream of thoughts, and through kind of slowing down the mind, you can get more effective at going towards your values. There's a big part of the therapy called value-based action. And what he talks about in The Confidence Gap is that you're going to do things that scare you, especially if you're a confident individual. That's part of being confident. So you're not necessarily feeling more certain, feeling more at ease. You're actually probably feeling less of those feelings throughout your days, your weeks, your months, because you have more courage. And the courage is what carries you, gets you to where you want to go. And that's what we're talking about here. So it's good to have confidence in competence in these core pillars of your self-esteem. It's good to have an understanding of these topics, and it's good to build confidence in what you're doing. But when you really look at it and you're really going into entrepreneurship and diving deeper and deeper and leading further and further, oftentimes you're going off of where you're comfortable. And that's part of being confident. That's what we call the confidence gap, where you've got this gap in confidence that you're sort of stretching yourself, but through your courage, you're able to kind of experience those emotions of fear, anxiety, and be certain that you can handle those challenges and come back to a place where you know, I can deal with this. This is something I've dealt with. I've dealt with challenges that are of this level before, and I can deal that. And that builds that muscle, that builds that emotion where you can keep going and keep stretching and expanding yourself. So I hope that was helpful. Let me know what you think, and I really appreciate the feedback as well as all the support. We're working on this, and I'm putting in a lot of time in the back end to kind of figure out and fine tune even more the messaging around where I want to go with content. But if you have suggestions, comments, I would love to hear your feedback. So thank you very much for watching, and until next time, keep crushing.